Hey everyone, just a little bit of a different intro on this one. I had a chance just recently to sit down with John Perry. For those of you who are in the lawn care industry or maybe a DIY homeowner, you've heard that name or you've seen his videos. He is the founder of BioGreene. He is the founder of Lawncology and the founder of Greene County Fert. And he's done a lot for the industry. He's helped people to see and look deeper into the soil, not just putting fertilizer. So it goes a lot along with the messages and the things that I teach here on the show. So the reason I'm doing this intro is the show is actually from my other podcast, which is called The Company Next Door. I interview entrepreneurs. And so I had a chance to sit down with John, go through his life and kind of figure it out what makes him tick and how he became who he is and some of the future things that are coming. Anyway, I got done the episode and I realized this would be a great episode for Eco Lawn Science because so much of what he has done, well, all of it just about is in the lawn care space. And many of you already know him. He's an influencer. He's done a lot of cool things. So enjoy this episode with John Perry. Thank you. Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Etse with another episode of The Company Next Door. Today, I've got a special guest here with me. His name is John Perry. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Thank you for coming all the way from Park City down to Heber.
Big travels. You know, I had to get in the plane and then take a helicopter bus.
That sounds about accurate.
Thumb it, yeah. It's 15 miles.
If you want me to pitch in some gas money, we'll do.
Oh, that'd be great.
We can... About $8.
Oh, perfect. That'd be great.
Yeah. Done. So John, for you guys, if you're in the lawn care space, you already know who he is. He is everywhere. We're going to get into the whole history of it, but he's built lawn companies. He's built a manufacturing plant. He's built a whole education side called Lawncology. And that's probably, and I'm guessing there's more to what he's done, but he's just an influencer as well. So if you're in the space, you've seen him, you know his videos, and you can go online and find all his videos. But today I told him I want to talk. We're both kind of lawn nerds, and we kind of want to avoid too much lawn nerdy talking.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think that. I like putting people to sleep as much as the next guy, but yeah. I think we could probably avoid that today.
Awesome. So John, let's start back. I know you've been in Park City since the 90s.
That's right.
But did you grow up here, or where did you come from?
So born in Houston, actually. So Texan originally, moved here between the ages of 12 and 13, and we had sort of a history in Park City to begin with. So like all Texans. We're huge skiers. I mean, I don't know if you know.
That's usually the first thing when they say Texas.
Yeah, it is. You know, we're super comfortable on snow and slippery surfaces because we're around it all the time, right? So my parents came to Park City, I want to say in about 1986, originally on a ski trip. They left the kids at home, but same thing I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, the more trips I can take without my kids.
Yeah.
And so they came up and they fell in love with it. And they're like, maybe eventually we'll bring the family up. So my first visit to Park City was, I want to say in 1987, maybe 88. And that was really the first time I saw real snow was at that point. And so we came back and just kind of fell in love with the town, came back for a summer. And the timing just sort of worked out. My dad was in the oil business down there. He was a VP. Obviously, I don't know what else anybody does in Texas.
It's all oil.
It's oil or oil. I think those are the two. So his company he worked for sold, and he retired essentially. And we didn't immediately move to Park City. Now, Park City today has a very kind of a certain, I don't know, aura about it, or what people think about it.
It's got its thing, yeah.
Back then, it was quiet.
Yeah, I heard it was not a very rich town like it is now.
No.
I heard it was kind of dumpy in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't here then, but it wasn't great yet, I would say. You know, the neighborhoods were older. They hadn't really expanded out towards the junction, so things hadn't really changed yet. So when we were here, it was still pretty sleepy. I want to say there were 2 stoplights.
Wow.
Now there's 30 to get into town. It takes forever. You can't go anywhere without stopping.
Yeah.
So we actually moved into a motorhome for a year.
That's awesome.
So it was myself and my 3 sisters, 2 dogs, parents, and homeschooled. for that time, right? Because there was nothing else.
That's what I'm doing right now. I literally just moved into one. We're going to travel, and I'm homeschooling my son because of the corona. So
it works.
We have the same story.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're the same. We are the same.
I never really wanted to homeschool my kids, and I'm having to do that now.
Same story. We have the same story.
Yeah. So we did that. Moved into a motorhome, traveled, and basically did like a kind of living history in a way. So we went to all Civil War sites. We went to Revolutionary War stuff. We went to every single base and whatever there was, so, and just toured. And we spent the winter in Park City and skied. And the following fall decided, let's, we're going to leave Texas and move up there. So that was 90s.
So let me ask you this. When your daddy was in the oil, was he always working away from the home? I mean,
oh yeah.
I feel like oil guys, they're working a lot. How did he do this trip?
So he was out of work at that point. So the company sold, and he was sort of forced into retirement. I don't think he wasn't ready. I can tell you that for sure, because he continued after this. He was like, I got to go back into the field. I can't do this anymore. So he took a few years off and then decided he wanted to get back into speculation and drilling and all this stuff. And he ended up taking a job in Siberia. As a matter of fact. So he was working overseas.
With the family, or the family stayed here?
No, we stayed here, and he would go for weeks at a time, and then it was months at a time, and then that was it. And we never saw him again. No, it took a little while before we saw him again, but it was a while. So, we just kind of stayed here and settled in, and it was great. I have no complaints about that time frame.
As a kid, so one of the things I've been intrigued about what you've done over your career is you're kind of a brainiac. I mean, I don't know what your education is, but as a kid, were you studious?
Yes.
You were studious.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. So essentially, the record of my education ends at about 6th grade. So when the homeschooling thing started, I just kind of plowed through it as fast as I could go. And I didn't want to go back to school because of the freedoms I discovered, because I could go at my own pace.
Right.
So my son is very much that way. I see him wanting to go faster than the curriculum is allowing him, and he just wants to move through it. And so there's this sort of fine line, but I finished my education by the time I was 15. So I just plowed through, and then I skied, and I got a full-time job by the time I was 12 and 13.
And so this trip, I mean, that had to be, because that was about around that time frame, maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, that had to play a big part into, I mean, I'm sure you were reading, the history of America, and you went to Gettysburg or wherever.
Yeah.
So everything was coming alive. Do you learn well that way? So,
it's funny, as we're sitting here talking, I can't listen to people.
Gotcha.
I really can't. I'm like, just give me the info, or tell me where I can get it, so I can just plow through, because I read really, really fast, and my retention's high because of that. I like to speed through things. So to have a timeline, I'm no good with. Okay. And as an example, so before my 16th birthday, I enrolled at UVSC, and which is now UVU.
Okay, that's down in Orem.
Yeah, and so they have one here in Heber, and they had a satellite in Park City. So I was doing classes here in Heber and in Park City from the time I was 15 to 18.
Okay.
And just running through college courses, and it ruined me. I just couldn't sit there. It was so hard, and I would go through the textbooks way ahead. I could have them read and done within the first, say, 3 weeks of a semester, and then I would just sit there. Sit there and test.
Get nothing out of the classes because you don't learn that way from lectures?
No.
Okay.
And that was the hard part for me, is the first semester, it was like I just went through all the information, and then they had all these tests, and the tests are on what the guy's saying, but not what's in the book.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a little more challenging, because it wasn't the same way as I was used to after years of just like hitting the books and just being able to plow through it.
Sure. So your son now, I mean, doing the homeschool thing, which you didn't intend to do, and you're finding out that he learns in a similar way or excels in that way. What do you do?
Right now, don't know. He's following the school curriculum, and they are posting the material for him, right? So even throughout the day, I have so much space where I'm trying to figure out what to do with this kid. And it's like, okay, I mean, it takes him 2 minutes to do an assignment that is an hour class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I guess we'll figure out something. Do the dishes again. I don't know what to do.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's cool, but it's a struggle, because I'm not traveling to my work. I work at home. I have to do all that stuff still, I'm sitting at the counter next to him, hammering out emails
Right.
and taking phone calls while he's working on his iPad. So it's different, man.
Yeah, but the fact that he's unlocked that, I don't know if he'll be able to go back either.
I don't know.
So that's, sorry, man. So you got some things to figure out.
We'll just see how it goes.
So you guys moved from Houston. Was there anything, because I've been through Houston. I've spent a month there.
Good for you.
It's hot. It's humid. It's a corporate area.
It is.
Was there anything from growing up there, those first 13 or 14 years, that had an impact on you that you brought on as you went on to do business?
Not necessarily.
Or were you just a kid playing around, goofing off?
Yeah, I used to have this theory that whatever your first job is becomes your career,
Okay.
which I don't really think is true because we didn't really have much internet and there's a lot of people working in the east side. But, I mowed lawns then. And actually I still have a flyer of this somewhere. It's Perry's mowing business that I did when I was like 9 years old or 10 years old. And I flyered my neighborhood and I started cutting grass. I had like 4 or 5 people I cut grass for every week. So my mom was a landscaper. So she, as a side business, she didn't really necessarily have to do it, but she loved it. Wow. So when I was little, born, she would take us out on jobs. Myself and my older sister is a few years older than me. And she had like a Datsun stake bed truck and just put both kids in the front. And she would go do all this work, spreading mulch, planting stuff. So for me, it was early life that was horticulture, very early life for me. Yeah.
Let me ask you before I forget later on, does your mom play any part or any role in any of your companies today or in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years, yeah. She passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay.
5 years ago now. But yeah, she very much entrepreneur.
Wow.
Big time entrepreneur. She had the first cell phone dealership in Park City, did the first digital satellites up there, had a rental car company, had property management. She was doing all this stuff just herself.
Let's just talk about your mom the rest of the show.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She would be way more interesting to interview. But maybe because she isn't here in flesh would be really interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a little
But
interesting.
if she was here, it would be pretty fantastic.
So let me ask you this: when you guys came to your father was forced into retirement. You do the big trip. You moved to Park City. It sounds like your mom went on some different business ventures.
Yeah.
Was your dad part of that? Was it a family thing? What
in the beginning? Okay, so before he decided to go back to work and start get back into the oil side, we had just some friends with some business ideas. And the first thing, and I want to say we were the first rental car company in Park City. And the first incarnation was called Mountain Car Rental. The guy who started it with my folks, they found all these old repurposed mail Jeeps. And they were painted red. They had no tops. They were 2-wheel drive. And they bought like 10 of them. And that's what they rented here in like 93, 94. And it started to seem like this could be a lucrative thing. So my mom she got into the Subarus. And that was all she was renting was like Subaru Outbacks for years.
Awesome.
But it was never big, 10, maybe 18 cars at the most. But there wasn't anybody else up here.
Yeah, that's going to be enough. Yeah.
So she ran that. When my dad started to work back overseas, when he was gone, she just kind of settled into doing that, and just kind of saw writing on the wall, as it were.
Yeah.
Got into the sundials before they broke ground out there at the canyons, and some of these other projects that were happening, and really parlayed it into some cool stuff. To make a living. After he left, that she was the main breadwinner for all of us. So
let me ask you this. You said he left. He did come back.
Well, no, not really.
Sorry, I want to make sure I get the picture clear. Did they split?
Yeah, they split before my 17th birthday.
Wow.
It was sometime around 16-ish is when that started to, when he just decided not to come back from Europe.
Wow.
So he still lives over there. He's there today. Yeah. But that was, I don't think I talked to him for like 5 or 6 years. I didn't even know where he was, like in the world. He was just, he was gone. Yeah. But we have a close relationship now.
You do now?
Yeah. It took a little bit. Maybe even having the birth of my daughter really was kind of what started to glue that back together.
He wanted to have her in his life for some part.
Yeah.
So your mom sounds like a really strong woman.
Oh yeah. It was amazing. She just worked and made it all happen.
So do you attribute your entrepreneurial spirit to your mother then?
For sure.
Okay, because you saw that growing up. You saw her just being creative, staying on top of things, coming up with ideas. And did you know at a young age that's what you wanted to do?
I actually did. I always said, from as early as I was working, I want to have my own. I want something to be my own. I want to create something as my own. I want to build something as my own. And I want to make it bigger than the small pond. I didn't want to do something that was just local.
Why?
I don't know. It was just something, I always had this sort of franchise mentality that, cast a wider net, right? Okay. That was always what it was cast a wider net. And you can do really well locally. I mean, running a business local, I had a great spray service in Reno that grew rapidly and it was great, but that was not my goal. My goal was more of those.
Yeah.
It was to model that and take it into bigger and better areas. And really, my work, since I started early, like that kind of 13 range when I really started working, I worked at some ski shops at Park City for years and years. And, when I started there was one store, and then there were two, and there were three. And so I kind of got to see this progression and be right in that sort of customer service side and be just a major part of watching expansion and then how to manage customers like personally, in a different way. So a huge part of the way I do things and the community that I've got and the people I work with come from just that. That's just core like programming.
Principles,
I mean, and so that's been really cool to see how it all played out. But I wrote this down somewhere and I've said this to my friends as well. I said, I wanted to create a business that all my idiot friends could do. And I said it just like that. Yeah.
And your friends were like, thanks, man.
And they're like, that's a great idea. Like, I gave you the opportunity, you missed it. But it evolved. It evolved into what it is today.
So after you said you did some schooling on UVU, which was something else, UVSC or something you said earlier. What happened after that? Did you do any more schooling? Did you get a bachelor's? Did you continue?
No, I was just done.
Because it didn't seem like it was working or a good fit for you.
I was already to the point of, okay, I'm working. I think I know what I want to do. I was actually working at the Park City Nursery for a number of years in the summer.
Good crew.
Yeah,
good
great
people.
crew. Steve and Ann was with them. And that again, I just kept kind of finding myself back in the horticulture side. And so there were a couple of core things that I really wanted, like a good community type of workspace where, you've got fun and friends and whoever you can surround yourself to build a business, right? And then I did not want to be behind a desk. Ever. So me being outside is vitally important.
Yeah.
And I still am. I mean, that has never changed. That's why I don't live where I work.
Right.
Because if I had to go into that place every day, I don't even know what would happen. It'd be terrible. Not only would I just ruin everyone's lives that work there, they're like, oh, come back out into the... But I can't do it. I'm not wired that way. And that's part of like the schooling thing, right? Like I need to be able to move and learn and do it at my own pace. If I have to just sit there, I just lose my mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's not like an ADHD thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
the way you are. Yeah. And I can relate. So what was the first company that you started? I mean, you said at the age of 9 or 10, you had a little mowing business, but when you got around those ages, so coming into your 20s, did you have your first company up by 20 or where were you?
I was 22 when I had the first real one, and it was a polymer injection company.
Okay.
That was the first thing I did that was a real business. And so that kind of had some biological fertility attached to it, and it was basically working as like a drought control technique for lawns.
Gotcha.
So that was what that's really is what started me down the road.
Where was that? Where
was here
in town, in Park City?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just started that, and what did you do with it? Did you grow it? Did you just kind of do it for a bit and get out of it?
Yeah, ended up doing it for a bit to get out, and it was really like maybe almost a 3-year business, but we were in the midst of a long drought at that point, and so people were really kind of conscious about this. Yeah. And so it sold really well. Like I was up and down the Wasatch Front. I was in Park City, and I did pretty well with it. But what I quickly realized is there was no residual.
Gotcha.
So that is the biggest key right there is when you're jumping into a business and it's got no residual, or the residual is 5 years in the future.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be the best thing, because it works really well, but you're selling new customers every day.
Every day, yeah.
And you don't get to see them again. So, I really paid attention to that. So it got me into the tree fertility side, which is where and then got into the lawn so I could at least continue to have revenue on my existing customer base.
Gotcha.
And what I found was doing the lawns the way I was doing them and using more of a bio-based technique, we were already cutting water needs on the lawns by 20 or 30% anyways. What do I need the polymers for?
Sure.
So it just kind of went, over the
Gotcha.
side. Yeah.
So that's a powerful lesson to learn at whatever 22 years old. I mean, this idea of reoccurring.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Well, and that's, I think that for a lot of businesses, especially now, the databases that we can build and hold on to, and all of this information that you can mail to, email to, contact to, all these different ways, that is so much better to market to than to new people, because they already know your story and they already know your service and they already know what you're doing. And if you can say, hey, guess what? We added this new product or service or whatever it is. They're like, great. Your turn is huge.
Right.
And you're selling into your own base and just creating an even tighter
And
circle,
not having
higher
to keep,
profit
every
circle.
time you have a new product, having to find new people and do all, because there's no marketing on that.
Correct.
Hey guys, you got a list, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember the name of that company?
It was called A Different Drop. There's probably actually it was, I don't even know where that came from, but it was
Different Drop.
Yeah. Yeah. It was all about water conservation.
That's all. We might have to resurrect that.
Yeah. You like that?
Things are pretty dry.
They are pretty dry. And that's something we could talk about if you wanted to get into some science geeky stuff. We could go down that road a little bit. But I know from a plant health and a soil health perspective is if we are doing proper nutrition to the turf, that it will not require more water to stay green.
Correct.
If we've got deeper roots that last longer. Soil holds a lot of moisture, especially here. I mean, I think that a lot of people I don't know what the word is. They don't really understand what their soil is. My soil is predominantly clay on my hillside.
Sure. Yeah.
And it holds a ton of water.
Right.
But you got to water into it.
Right.
But once you do that, you don't have to do that much. I have never gone over my allotment. Not one time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't have free water.
No,
Not like down here.
It's expensive. Down here it's cheap.
Yeah.
So they all overwater and everybody has weeds galore.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, I could take that, but we got to stay.
Yeah.
We can't get too
Stay
long
on
nerdy,
task.
I promise.
Stay on task.
So when you got rid of A Different Drop, what did you do then?
Okay, so the way that sort of
So
parlayed into this other side. So I was contacted. How did that go? I contacted a company out of Reno to get some fertigation tanks that I brought in here and put on some customers' lawns. And it turned out the guy that was dealing that also was doing polymer injection in Reno. And he was trying to get a little bit more into the fertility side too, and they were doing pretty well. And he actually had me come out and sort of do some consulting, repair one of their machines, because these things were not, they would just fall apart.
Yeah.
So I had some sort of things that I'd done to mine to customize a little bit that held up. And so I ended up out there, and I talked to him about, hey, my idea is to go more into the fertility side and, do this thing. And my idea was this BioGreen, right? And he's like, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. Let's kind of talk over the winter. So we launched that together in May of 2005. 2005
is when you launched BioGreen.
Yeah.
Which you took that thing pretty far.
Yeah.
Tell us, how many branches did you end up putting together? And
we had, at the peak of it, I think we had around 86 locations around the country. First year out licensing, I want to say we had 13.
Okay.
So I had one right not far from me, an hour and a half from me. I had my location in Reno, another one functioning in Tahoe, and then there was one in Salt Lake. There was one in Minneapolis. There was one in Fort Myers, Florida, Denver. I mean, we had like the country covered in these segments. And it did, this was now during, moving into the recession when that started to, that was 2007 we started licensing.
Okay.
Was in 2007.
Tell us a little bit about the model, because I know it was a little bit, tell us a little bit about the way you structured the model with your local branch owners.
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier, like the franchise thing appealed to me.
Yeah.
What didn't appeal to me was having me in somebody's pocket forever. Right?
What do you mean?
So, a typical franchise thing, you're going to pay anywhere between like say 7 and 13% top line revenue, no matter what. So that's a lot, as a small businessman, and you're out there, if you just had a company that was just pulling that, no matter what, all the time.
It'd get old.
It would get old, right? Like, and you're trying to figure out, especially in the beginning, what am I really getting here? Now, some of these people who were, say, in the Scott's franchise system and all that kind of stuff, they were able to build massive companies off of a huge brand.
Right.
Different story.
Sure.
We're starting from scratch doing different stuff. So I never felt comfortable with it. So my whole concept was, we'll license the name, we'll license everything about it. We did license agreements. But since I was making the product, the way that you maintain that license was you hit minimum purchase agreements, because I'm selling the fert anyway. Right. So they're just buying it from me, and they maintain these things over X amount of years, and they go into a perpetual agreement. They're just biogreens forever.
And the license that they're paying, was that forever, or was it like an upfront one-time cost?
It didn't cost. There was actually no cost.
So the cost was just committing to buy the product from
Yeah.
them.
So we would come in and say, here's how you're going to start. You've got like 2 totes. You've got this. And at first I built it all out. Like, you come in with like $75,000. Here's a truck. Here's a wrap and all that. And I'm like, this is a terrible idea. Anybody can get a truck. Anybody can use a local printer. Anybody can do this. So what am I doing? I'm not in the car dealership business. I'm not in the equipment dealership business. All I want to do is make and sell fertilizer. So that was it. Like, that was the whole concept is I make the stuff, I ship the stuff, they put the stuff on the ground, customers are happy, customers pay them, I get paid. Like, that was really how much thought do you really need to put into that?
Yeah, but that's a very interesting model.
Yeah.
It's not that common. I mean, maybe there's in other industries. I'm not that familiar with it, so I think it's interesting.
It's in most like the franchise world, the franchisor they've got deals with all sorts of supply lines, right? And so they're constantly, kind of shoving it down your throat. Like, here's what you're buying, here's how you buy it. And that works for a time. And I did see that change in the big, like the True Green franchises to begin with, and then the Scott's franchises, some of these other ones, they can't police that, right? So if you had a $10 million lawn care company and you're still giving a 10 or 12% premium to a vendor because you're supposed to buy from them,
right?
And that you're giving money away, you stop doing it.
Yeah,
like that's really all there is to it. And then, a franchisor is kind of held, they're sort of like handcuffed, because they're sitting here thinking, well, they're doing $10 million. We're making 10 or 11% on that. We can't tell them to stop that because now everybody's in breach, and now we're out $1 million a year on this guy's hard work. Right. So that's kind of how it started to devolve in the whole overall franchise system.
So you get to about 80, 86, did you call them franchises?
No, licensees.
Licensees, okay. Throughout the U.S., what was your takeaway? Did you, at the end of it, after a few, because it's they still exist. So they still exist.
Yeah.
Have you made changes to that model, or have you just been like that? It's still kind of the same thing, and you're happy, or would you make changes if you built another?
I don't really offer it, I suppose, anymore.
Gotcha.
So, and I guess this leads into chapter 3, right? Like here's how it changed. So we have these guys around. We have these locked in license agreements. We have areas so that people can't compete. Right. So we're having all these kind of geographical locations that are blocked off. It's based on zip codes. It's this. There's all these factors that went into it.
Sure.
And I was repeatedly getting questioned by these larger companies like, hey, I'd like to get your stuff. Great. You just have to be a licensee. I'm like, well, we don't want to do that. It's like, we just want to buy your stuff. Like, well, I don't really know how we can do that, because this is the model.
Yeah,
right?
this is how you get it.
So that's when we kind of went a little divergent and said, okay, how can we capitalize on these people? Because, they don't want a brand. And all we had on the other side was the brand, right? Like, it was the BioGreen brand. That was the important part. So, we created Greene County Fertilizer Company. So that was in 2014 is when that happened. So in 2014, we did that to have a private label company. So we were dealing with larger companies who wanted their own label, their own brand, their own stuff, and that was on their fertilizer. And
so essentially like a white label. You could,
pretty much,
you could create your products, and James's Lawn Care could put James's Lawn Care logos and things on it.
As long as they hit that, it had to be a certain volume because to be worth our while,
right?
So we had to set it up that way. So and most of these companies were pretty big, and they were like, yeah, this sounds great. Well, that got really interesting because now, the people know, well, this product's out there. And so we started getting more contact, but it became different because people wanted the pieces and not the whole pie. So it was like components. We're like, well, we see you have all this stuff in here. Can you just sell us those pieces or whatever?
Gotcha.
So I ended up splitting, which I just still don't fully understand, but it changed everything because I split out. I said, fine, we'll offer humic acid as it stands alone. We'll offer a sea kelp as it stands alone. We'll do a combo. We do that, and we do all of these different things, and it just went nuts.
Yeah.
Went ham. I mean, I didn't even, it was like, okay, well, here we are now.
So you've got your biogreens, they're over here.
Yep.
Now you've got this whole other stream where it's larger companies saying, I want your product, white label, or I'll buy it from you.
Right.
That sounds, it sounds exciting.
It was.
It sounds really exciting, actually. It sounds kind of like a dream and stressful. But how do you sort through that? Because was it getting imbalanced? Were your biogreen guys going, hey, wait a minute, these guys are over here able to just walk up and buy it? Or
not really. Not really. So the way that it worked, it was a little different. So we had certain key whole products that were on the biogreen line, right? And what we immediately did is when we split everything out, we're like, you can, whatever you want, you can pull from either line. So we made it available to everybody. But for a lot of these bigger companies, they weren't going 100% into a liquid fertility program. They wanted one item. Sure. It might make up 10 or 11%. So it didn't change their business model. They weren't going off the brand. They're just like, no, we need a good humic acid supplier, and the stuff that we get around here costs 3 times what you're selling it for. So we just want to be able to get it from you. And it didn't. Even if there was competition, I mean, we might have in certain areas in Florida, for instance, we could have 30 or 40 companies using our stuff, and nobody knows. Yeah. Nobody knows the difference, right? Because they're not out there marketing like this is the brand. They're just using components in what they think is their best program.
So Greene County Fert, you've got a warehouse. You might have do you have a couple?
We have one. We have one in Greensboro, Georgia, and one in Orlando.
Okay, Greensboro, Georgia was the first, and that's the original.
No, actually. Oh. We were in Nebraska prior to that.
Wow. Central, middle of the company?
Yeah, middle of the country. And so my plant manager was from Nebraska. That's where I picked him up to stay there. As soon as we outgrew that place, I'm like, we got to move south. Yeah. And so him and his family moved.
From what I understand, your Georgia factory, I mean, it's pretty big.
It's pretty big. It's 30,000 square feet under roof.
And you're producing a lot of product.
A lot of product.
How many gallons of humic acid? I mean, a day or a week? I mean, or how do you quantify it?
Yeah, it's
I'm just I'm trying to paint a picture for those listening, like get an idea what the size of the volume.
We have about 120,000 gallons of storage for just humic, and we can't get it full. We can't get it.
Wow.
We sell it too fast. Okay. So I don't know as far as size and scale to compare it to anybody else, but we go through a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. So right now I think we're actually close to filling the tanks as we come into the wintertime, but we managed to fill about 65,000 gallons coming into the early spring.
Yeah.
And we were wondering if we were going to be able to produce enough by April 15th.
Did you have any idea how to do manufacturing? I mean, it's just when I think of it, it seems overwhelming.
Oh, it's big. You've dabbled a little.
Yeah,
you've done some stuff.
But on this scale, I mean, I just go.
Right.
What was the secret? I mean, did you find the right people? How did you build this thing?
So
the real estate part, all of it.
Oh yeah, that's a fun story too. First, I'm more of a creative mind, right? We kind of established this. Yeah. That's kind of straight, and like making things work in a line doesn't really work for me well. Everyone that works for me are those people. They are detail oriented. They will make sure it's done exactly right.
Gotcha.
And it's flawless.
You're the why guy. They're the how people.
Oh, man.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would be just absolutely screwed.
So it's a good thing you don't actually run all these.
Oh, it's terrible. They used to dread when I would come to Georgia, like, oh, no, he's going to come down here and change everything again. And I'd be like, well, let's do this. And then, I come back a year later. I'm like, this looks great. And they're like, yeah, we didn't change anything. So, there's kind of a fun give and take there. But they are, the whole team just fulfills like you wouldn't believe, like just clockwork. And I don't like to pop in there very often because I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
Now at this point, so development's been more fun for me. Really diving into the soil science side, understanding the plant stuff, and really seeing what's missing in the marketplace to get it out there and to develop. It's been more my side.
So, well, before we ask this question, then there's Lawncology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there's also you have service companies now again.
Not anymore.
I'm out. You're out of service.
I'm not doing it. I can't.
Never again, right?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I mean, if there was a huge opportunity and it was like, hey, there's nobody here in, I don't know, Muncie, Indiana.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd want to fund somebody in. Maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
But I don't know.
Tell us about one of the things I thought was interesting is, and I don't know if you did this intentionally, but you actually like paved this perfect path for someone to go. Like, for example, you get the service companies, and then you start the franchisings or the licensees.
Yep.
And then you go, well, we need product to sell. So then you have a manufacturer, and then it turns into a teacher. You build Lawncology, and you're teaching people, and you're doing videos, and you're training. Did you intentionally set that path out 15, 20 years ago? Because that would be the path that most people would draw out.
Kind of, yeah. Kind of.
Okay.
Education first, as far as the model of the business has been education first. So we give freely of whether it's
I love that too.
product or it's what, it doesn't really matter. Business advice. I mean, when I had a rule that if you wanted to work for me, you had to run a spray service. So just so you could talk.
Yeah.
And have a conversation with a guy who's like, I'm out there doing this, like, oh, well, here's the equipment that we ran if you need to get a hold of this. So the industry connections became really big because we all were on the ground, boots on the ground guys. And that made, I think, a really huge difference because you can speak about it with knowledge and confidence of like, I know what you're going through right now.
Sure. Yeah.
And we all have stories of hoses and pumps exploding and things
yeah.
like there's always, there's a level of relatedness there that not everybody can do.
Yeah.
So for me, I have been sort of like a behind the scenes speaker for a long time, not out in big public, but like I'd get called in to say, hey, can you do this in PowerPoint or do CEUs and stuff like that. So before I was doing videos, before I was doing any of this stuff, I was doing kind of a lot of speaking at like shows and it's always been there. So the push into the educational side with Lawncology was a forced thing. Now, I started that whole idea because I wanted to write a book. And I started writing my book, and then I started blogging instead to help me have inspiration for my book.
Gotcha.
So the blog came first, and that's old now. I mean, 5 or 6, 7 years old or something like that is when I first started.
Ancient.
It is.
In digital.
In terms of digital world, it's like, what'd you write this on? Like a word processor? So that it was, the transition from that to video was more of a forced hand, actually.
By the team or?
Well, kind of. Brad, my main operations guy, right-hand man, he's down there doing all the work all the time. He's like, you need to be doing video. And he would just say it to me like that. Do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I said, I don't want to do it. Do it. You need to start. He said this to me for a decade. I'm like, stupid. Nobody's going to go to that. And what ended up happening is the DIY push from our next line made me do it because people were asking questions.
Right. You had to create the content to fulfill
that's right.
it. Yeah.
So, we had people who were out there, some real influencers, who were talking about stuff because they liked it and they used it. And people are bombarding my office with phone calls. And I'm like, I got to start doing videos now just so people could, get their questions answered. And that was what the content was built on, was like emails and, messages on Instagram or whatever it might be. I was like, okay, we'll make a video about that.
So that's why you started this idea, and that's how you got into the Lawncology side. Because at this point now, before you had companies coming to you and buying your product, and they're versed enough to have a quick discussion. But now homeowners and people who don't know anything, you're getting some crazy questions.
Oh yeah.
So with Lawncology, tell us about what it is. Like, what's the model? What do you do? How does it work?
So my whole concept behind that was to truly incorporate soil and plant.
Okay.
Soil and plant, because it always seems like there is an argument between the two. Like the two sides never seem to reconcile each other. You go to turf school, you learn about turf. You take like 3 credit hours of soil, and you don't really learn any of that stuff. You don't understand what exactly needs to happen to interface this way or that way. Now, some guys go a little bit deeper into that, but if you take a soil science route and you go this direction, you don't really get as much into the plant thing. So there's this big wide spread of what is correct. Right? So my whole idea was we need to get both working seamlessly together and take here's this approach and here's this approach. Well, why do they have to be so separate? Why can't we have these things be a combination? So I started really more trying to connect everything so people could understand, hey, when you fertilize, here's what's actually happening. It's not that you're just like feeding the plant. Look at this breakdown that happens all through the soil before you even get it into the plant, right? And so this soil system has to build up and be alive and healthy. And, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You stopped yourself, right?
I did.
Because
I
you're
was
going to keep going.
I might have blacked out there for a second.
So that's okay. So is there revenue involved with Lawncology, or is it more just educate? Is there anything on that side?
So, well, the YouTube channel does okay. That's something that it does. But we do an annual show that's Lawncology. And so that's professionals. That's just for professionals. And they come down and we cover off all this stuff. And now Greene County, my company, is the title sponsor for that. But we have other sponsors there as well to put on the show. And so last year, or this year, pre-COVID, barely. Actually, we still think about 30% of the people had it. We had 150, 160 people attend that for a multi-day seminar, classes. And we did actually give CEUs as part of that because we have multi-state registration for that.
And where was that held?
That was in Georgia. Athens.
Okay.
That was in Athens.
And was it business owners?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was all business owners. So typically what we've seen I think that was our fifth one that we've done now, fifth year.
Wow.
And about maybe 10% of the attendees don't do business with us. They come there, they learn about it,
Yep.
and then they become customers. So we have the opportunity to talk to them, aside from it. But the intent of that is not to sell product. It's just to educate. And it's marketing. We do a lot on marketing. We do a lot on the soil stuff. We do a lot on, chemical interactions. I mean, you name it. We have weed control presentations. We do the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff I've seen. And I think that's actually how we met is you were one of the first people I ever heard about that was doing something that I actually was starting to come into, which was more, bringing in the bios, the organics, the compost, things like that into lawn care.
Yes.
Because 10 years ago, there was only a handful.
Hey man, 20 years ago it was witchcraft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I really appreciate what you've built.
Yeah.
So what does your day-to-day look like now? Because you've got all these projects. I also know, anytime I go on YouTube, you're with either a lawn care influencer, you're being interviewed. There's a lot. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
I don't even know, man. It's just.
Is there a schedule like for the week or?
Not really. So the whole. There used to be
before COVID,
but around March 21st, that all changed.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID there was a routine. Now I'm still struggling to get there. So I still wake up really super early, so that I can start on stuff. One thing that I am doing that's not really. It's still kind of getting out there is I do custom soil report and fertility recommendations for people. So I offer that through my Lawncology website, and it's cheap, and I get a soil report from them, and I give them 2 years of what they need to do in order to have an epic lawn. And it's dirt cheap, but I film that. I set it out in front of me. I send them a YouTube link. It's all unlisted. And so I do that sometimes really early in the morning.
Yeah.
Because I have to do it when it's quiet, and I have to knock these things out. And they're maybe between 5 and 7 minutes long, so they're not huge, but it's a lot of information to cover off for somebody. So I try to get up early to work the East Coast stuff. Then it's kids are up, get them on Zoom calls. And then I have recurring ones I have to do as well. So I have those go on. But for the most part, it's just answer emails throughout the day. I have more people trained to text me than to call me. So my phone doesn't ring a lot, which is nice. So but I am being communicated with on a regular basis through Facebook Messenger, through my regular phone messaging, through YouTube channels, through Instagram channels, email. I mean, it's digital, just bang, 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 bang all the time. So I've really been trying not to add anything else to it.
Right.
But as you grow, it just piles on.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the breakover point in that is to where I'm somebody else can answer this and pretend to be me.
I think it's just when you can't take it. Your sanity.
I'm out.
So what are you excited about now? I mean, how long, I'm not very good at math. Let's see, I'm trying to think how long you started. What's it been, 15 or 16 years?
Yeah, 2003 really. 2002,
Okay.
2003 is when I really started the journey.
So I'm asking because, me personally, I have a lawn company. I'm kind of tired of grass. I'm more excited about business and giving that service and finding new things and creativity. What's lighting you up these days on keeping you interested?
Well, I constantly on the development side. So I have new things that'll pretty much come out like every year, every two. I have a couple of really fun things coming up, but it's interesting I guess the evolution is interesting, and maybe you'll be able to relate to this as well. So I do have fun making the videos.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty fun. And I've really enjoyed learning the craft more and kind of getting deeper into the editing game and visual storytelling.
That's cool.
And I can see it kind of transitioning a little more vloggy coming up, which I actually really enjoy.
Yeah.
It's fun. The business is at a point where I tell my team, I'm like, I'm just a figurehead at this point. I mean, I'm just talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not down there in the day to day. Obviously I'm involved in the decisions, but
Sure.
it's different. So even for you, you come up, you have these other exciting things. You have this opportunity. Like if you have the right people in place, your business can just go run.
Right.
And you can dedicate the time to it, to work on it.
Yep.
Not be out there spraying.
Absolutely.
Not be repairing stuff. That's more where I am now. So I've got this thing running and it's awesome. It's doing very well. And then I kind of get to pick and choose some of this other stuff. But music is still really huge for me.
Yes. We didn't even touch music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
That's a big deal. The creative aspect for me is really what I truly am.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. So when you're because you're a songwriter, what is your favorite when you're creating? How do you do it? Like, do you have to set aside time to create, or are you more just?
It's all inspirational.
Okay, so you might just be walking, hiking, and I got an idea. Okay,
yeah.
Pull out the phone and sing into it.
I would do that, and sometimes it would just be like, I like this line.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of cool. Like that's a sort of an ironic. I'm gonna just type that down, and then I get back home and be like, how does that go? And you just kind of find that melody, and like, what can you do with this? And then I just build it off that. And sometimes it's just straight in the moment. You're picking on your guitar, and in 12 minutes you have a full song done. Lyrics and everything. It's like, oh man, and it's just gotten so much easier than it used to be. I mean, I have notebooks and files from when I was younger in my teens writing songs. I have a box full of songs. I look at that crap, all of it. I mean, there's just another.
I can relate.
Yeah, you write 1,000 songs and 2,000 of them suck. That's really how it goes. So yeah.
And you're playing in a band. Mm-hmm. I mean, not playing right now because of COVID. But what's the name of the band?
Silver Strike.
Silver Strike.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. It's fun, and it definitely has had its challenges because we went from like, this is going, and then, well, now what?
So what has been some of the hardest times? I mean, building businesses and life in general is just not easy to get through it. Take away the business.
No.
And adding business, I mean, you have to manage so much stress and people and pieces moving. Has there been a time where you're just like, I'm done. I hate this,
Oh yeah. Usually around every, I don't know, October. It's about the time I'm done with it.
Right now?
Yeah. When I was spraying lawns, it was every July. I'm like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, it's so hot.
It's July. You're like, I don't want to ever do this again. And by the time September rolls around. No, have you ever had a long, cold winter?
Yes, I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So
have you ever had one in your business?
Yeah.
A long, cold winter? Yeah, we had one that lasted like 8 years. It was like trying and struggling and growing and putting everything back into the company to let it go. And it was like, how do we make it? What's the next step? How much more, just invest in, back in, find the right people, grow the thing. And it wasn't easy. It was never easy. Yeah. And to say that it's easy now, I think would be a stretch because it's a different set of challenges.
Right. Yeah.
So, it was dark from like 2009 to maybe 2014.
Wow.
It was dark. It was hard. And we were growing huge percentages.
Yeah.
And that was hard because in the beginning, there were only 3 of us.
Yeah.
So when I bought my plant in Georgia, that was in 2013, there were 3. It was just us. And none of us lived there. So we rotated through that place in this massive building, in our 3,000 square foot office, 30,000 square feet of production space. And we had to go 2 weeks at a time. So like one of us would go down there and we would just man that place and we would get the product and move it out the door and do stuff. And then the next person would come in and overlap for a few days to make sure we caught up, so everybody knew what was going on. And then we'd rotate again. And we did that for the first 7 months or so down there. And then we started to staff in like 2014 and build it up. So, yeah.
And the whole time you're just putting money back into the company.
That's all we could do.
And you're working and you're exhausted and just,
Yeah. But we did everything. We built every piece of equipment.
That's all. Wow.
I mean, we did it all. Like, no, we're not spending money on that. Learn how to wire it. That's what we're going to do. So, I mean, every bit of remodeling that was done in there. I mean, you name it. We did it all from just bootstraps because there wasn't money in it yet. It needed to go towards other things.
When some of these things you're building, and maybe Lawncology, maybe it's an example, maybe it's not, But sometimes when you're building content and building things for the future, they don't directly pay off.
No.
And so they're expensive, right?
Yes.
You've got film teams, you're doing all this. Sometimes it's easy. You almost want to give up. You can, you know what I mean? You're like, I'm spending money. There's no money coming in.
Yep.
I'm doing this. I'm putting all my time into it. People see you working, but they don't see the result. Did you ever experience that?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, there was a time, I would say from when I sold my spray service in Reno, which was in 2009, the year my daughter was born, moved from Reno down to Santa Cruz, California. And that was, I mean, we're talking peak recession time, right? And so everyone was working remotely. I had the small facility in Nebraska where I had Chad. He was doing everything there. I would try to get out there whenever I could, which might only be a week, maybe 3 days a year. At first, it was like just to shoot out there and be like, and then I had Brad down in Florida. He was working out of Florida. So we were just constantly in like, it's all telecommunication and how do we sell and then bring in other people. So we had a couple guys who would start to like rep the stuff and especially in the state of Florida. So in the beginning, all of my money, all of my advertising, whatever I could do, focused on the southern states. Hard, really hard. I needed year-round revenue.
Right.
So I went there. And I'm still really strong in Florida and I'm part of a ton of organizations down there. And that was like, I mean, I was spending even last year, I don't know, 16 weeks in Florida, like still going back and forth just because I'm part of all these organizations and stuff. So that one's really grown and continues to grow, which is why we have an office and a warehouse in Orlando as well. But it was so challenging because, sometimes it's, how do we get on an airplane right now? How are we going to do that? Is there somebody who could lend us $400 to go somewhere? Yeah. That's how it was back then, like in the beginning. So, it's interesting now because people have a major difference in the perspective of like my life, of what I look like now.
Sure.
And thinking that this is just always how it has been,
it's
right?
It's been simple because you came from oil money and you lived in Park City.
Yeah, right. And none of that was even very true. I mean, like, the way that we ended up there was our house in Texas sold for the exact same amount as what we bought for, right? So it was a transition. It was not expensive back then.
Yeah, not like today.
And, I think my dad lost almost all of his retirement money. He was like, hey, you need some. And units. It wasn't there. We really didn't have anything like that. So I didn't have a funding source behind my business. I never had any like benefit that way.
Even to this day, have you not taken outside funding? Like
so we did at one point, and I suppose I could drop a name on this because I don't even know if they're in business. On Deck Capital. On Deck Capital, when they first came out, they were doing kind of like really sharky loans.
They do bridge loans, like short term.
Yeah, with high interest.
Okay.
Yeah, by the time you get through it, you were like, I just paid like 72% on that. But they would factor it off receivables. They do like weekly draws. And when you're growing, that was one way. They'd be like, yeah, we can fund you $56,000. So here's what it is. And we're going to pull out $380 a week.
Gotcha.
So that's how they would do it. So we did that once or twice, probably in 08, 09. Wow. I think that was about it on that side. And then we've functioned off of cash flow for
that's amazing,
like ever.
That's amazing.
Yeah, when there was actually, we did at one point we offered up some shares in the C Corp if people wanted to buy in for a little bit. So we were able to raise a little bit of money back then and have a few shareholders. So like my sisters are involved, and my dad's involved, and my stepmom, and so I have some family that are close by that are pieces of it now, and so that helped.
What piece of advice or a couple pieces would you give to another entrepreneur who's got an idea, maybe wanting to start something, but maybe afraid or maybe just unsure? You've learned so much over the years.
I'd say plan on falling on your face. Plan on it. Put on a helmet. That's what I would tell everybody is put on a helmet. I think that there's two different kinds of people who start businesses.
Okay.
There's people who are creative, have a great idea, and have no execution. And then there's people who are just buying a job. Like that's really what it is. So I know a lot of people, they work for, say, a framer or somebody, and they're like, well, I could just do this, and they end up going and starting their own company, but it never moves beyond their craft, right? Because they don't know how to go into making it a business. They just bought themselves a job with a lot more stress.
Wow.
So, there was a saying, maybe it was on a t-shirt or something. It was like, an entrepreneur is a person who will trade in a 40-hour work week to go work for themselves for 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Sounds accurate.
And it's true, because I don't think a lot of people know, but there's not freedom in it for a long time.
Which is the selling point for most.
Yes.
Most people say, "Oh, I want freedom," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, why are you doing this then?"
Yeah, you'll get it eventually, but there's no days off.
Yeah.
There's no days off in entrepreneurship. There's rarely any nights off. People lose sleep all the time. And when you go to bed thinking like, how am I going to pay this bill? This is coming due. And you just crank through. Your mind doesn't get to rest. So I don't think it's for everybody, but I do encourage people to do it. Like, this is where you're going to learn.
Right.
And you got to plan on failing.
Yeah.
You do. You need to set this goal that's like big and out there that you want, and you need to plan on failing. And if you can trip and get back up, you learn so much more along those falls than you do if you just get there immediately. It's that whole lottery winner thing. You end up with $100 million one day, but you never learned how to manage it. It's gone.
Yeah, you're gonna waste it.
Right? So it's the same thing in business. I feel like you have to get bloody. I feel like you have to fall down. I feel like you have to be broke. I feel like you have to go through the hard times. I feel like you have to negotiate for everything to get through it. Like, I got to go to a bank. I got none of this. And you're like, how do I make this happen? So, and if you're a person who doesn't execute well, you need to find somebody who does. Give them the idea and work with them. I think that's the other big piece. It's wonderful to have an idea, but if you can't execute, then what's it worth?
What's it worth? Yeah.
Nothing. Zero.
Do you have, and you don't have to go into detail or name them, but do you have some exciting things moving forward that we haven't talked about?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. I've got some stuff in patent right now that I'm working on. I'm not talking about it yet.
Cool. Same space? Or you don't
Same
you don't have to
space.
answer? Okay.
Yeah, same space, but a different. Yeah.
Okay.
Same space, but different.
So, what do you see as the future of where the industry's going, the lawn care industry? Because I've been watching it. I'm a student of it. Mm-hmm. You've been watching it longer.
Yeah. So I've up until this point, I feel like I've been a pretty good predictor of how things were going to look for the season. In fact, coming into 2020, I was pretty certain on how things were going to go, and I can just adjust it a little bit, and we could talk about the COVID side of things, because everybody got scared in the spring. Everybody got scared in the spring, and when we did, we're like, I don't know what does this mean for us? Is lawn care going to stop? Right? So how do we plan for that? That wasn't the case, So maybe there was a little hiccup that happened, but the industry still grew, and it grew really well this year.
Yes, it did.
Which was what we speculated on at the beginning of 2020. And I think I'm in an article in Landscape Management talking about it last year. Like, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that we see a surge again because and it's funny, but it was because the employment rate was so high, nobody had time to do it anymore. So the service side was going to grow. There was just no choice but for it to grow. And then all of a sudden there's more people unemployed. Well, from a weird flip side, a lot of the people that became unemployed weren't people buying lawn care anyway. They weren't the service people. They're more hospitality workers and things like that, which is terrible. I'm not minimizing that by any means.
Sure.
But it didn't affect the people who were buying lawn care. What happened this year, which I think was pretty cool, and I don't know how it's going to play out, but it was pretty cool. My buddy Kendall Hines, he has a company called Lawnbot. You know Kendall?
I was on a show a couple weeks ago, and I know you're coming up.
Yep. So he had this great idea, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
Yeah.
Contactless sales.
Yep.
Right? I'm not necessarily a fan of contactless sales. I like meeting people.
Sure.
I mean, like, if we had to do this from Zoom, it would be way less interesting.
Yeah.
You'd be like,
Yeah, I don't even like watching Zoom interviews that much.
It's terrible. So I that piece is going to expand big time. Contactless sales, AI, that's going to be big. I hope people don't get complacent with that, and they still do actually have interfacing with customers, because I think that I still remember the names of so many of my customers.
Yeah.
They would just love to come out and chat.
Yep.
And you just like, oh, I'm so excited to go see Mrs. Smith. She's going to come. She always got lemonade or whatever it was.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So I hope we don't lose that in this industry. But I don't see it going anywhere but up still. I've watched the percentage of lawn care change from, like, say, maybe 7, 1 out of 7 homes take it, to like 2 out of 7 to up to 3 and 5 in my time. I mean, that's significant, So we're seeing this huge influx of people who are like, I don't even know how to take care of that stuff. So just call the guy.
Yeah.
Which is good. If businesses are ready for it.
Right.
That's the other part.
Yeah.
So I see it still growing.
Yeah. I think, and I love all the AI. Yeah. Kendall, his work is great. I'm doing some bot projects myself. And I think you're right. The key is we have to make sure if we have these bots that are helping us out so much, we better have even better customer service, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
We better give experiences for the customer that we've never been able to give.
So here's something interesting too, and this is just strictly service side. Like the service industry right now is booming. I don't know why, because we couldn't get, I don't know, a cleaning service or a window washer or anybody to come to that for a little while, and people kind of freaked out, like I have to do all this stuff. Well, now if you call to try to get one of those, they'd be like, well, we're 7 weeks out.
Yeah.
And you know what you say? Okay. There's no rush.
Yeah.
Like, I need it. I'm not going to go shop for it. It's like, yeah, okay.
Right.
Great. Can you put me on the schedule? Yeah, no problem. And so as a business owner, like for me, there is a tyranny of the urgent. Like if somebody calls and say, hey, I want your service, I'd be like, I got to figure out how I can be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or today, right? Like that was my whole pledge.
Exactly.
We still do that in my plant. If an order comes in before noon, it's on a truck that day. We have no delay time. It's like, get it out the door. If it is at 12:01, we'll try to get it on that day. But it's like that. So I still have that rush, but now I have the experience of people being like, I don't need it right away. I just need it. And now businesses are learning how to adapt to this like future scheduling thing, which I don't think people are typically good with small business. I really don't. But I just had this experience with a screen company, window screens. Could I have done it myself? Probably.
Yeah.
Would it have looked right? Not questionable. But I called and it was like, yeah, we're 5 weeks out. I was like, okay, how firm is that? It was pretty firm. They said, if anything cancels, we can move you in or whatever. But they were on it, like at just before the date. Okay, hey, we're going to be out there at this time. The day before, like, well, we did have one cancel, so we're going to come 2 hours early. So I got to see this small business adapting to this change.
Awesome.
They're busy. And I'm like, absolutely, it's fine. I'll be here. Come to that. Where am I going to go? I can't go anywhere anyway.
Yeah, we're all locked
We're all
up.
just staring out the window, hoping somebody's going to knock.
Do you have any regrets building these companies? Not regretting the companies themselves, but are there any decisions you've made that you regret, where you think, darn, if you look back, I could have done that better, or I could have been better here, or?
Yes. I think in an effort to cast a wide net, you spend money beyond your reach.
Yeah.
I'm
familiar.
Yeah. So I used to have what I called the education fund. And the education fund was not something that I knew I was spending, but at the end of the year, I go like, well, there went 50 grand,
I do know.
For years. I was like, man, not another one. Like I'm just paying for college. Every year I'm just paying for college. And again, you learn and you don't do it again. But we tried, any way we could go to get our name out there in the beginning. And it's funny. I'm talking 12 now, maybe when we started to really push 12, 13 years ago, it was still very different than today.
Yeah.
Very different. We did so much print, and then like talking to like weird little TV shows and stuff. Like, can I get on there? Like, because people still actually watched regular television.
Right.
That was the thing. I did crazy well on radio for years. But I think about like
because of the voice.
It's the voice.
You have the radio voice. Listen, guys.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're making me sound bad.
It was, but those kind of things. Maybe getting too excited. I did find this. This is one thing I can tell you for sure, and maybe you've experienced this as well. In the sales side of things, it's hard to find a really great salesperson, somebody who really does a good job of representing both your company, your product, and your ideals, and they can close, right? I found that if somebody walks in the door saying, here's what I'm going to do for you, I should just show them the exit, because it never works out. Like if you come in big, you end up leaving big.
Yeah.
And that's been something that I've found. And maybe this isn't a truth. Like I'm not going to speak this as an absolute.
Sure,
but
sure.
If you come in humble and knowledgeable, and you're able to connect with your customer, you're going to do very, very well.
There it is.
That's it.
I actually believe that so much.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think that you come in boastful, people stop listening.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh,
Yeah. No.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just here's the information. Here's how it works. Here's your price.
Yeah. Let me know if you like it.
Yeah, that's it. We've sold on the let me know if you want to do it model forever. Not like what paint job can I get you in today? You know, like we're not gonna. It's just like here's what it is, and it's all in print. There's no deals, right? You know, we don't have to say, well, if you do this today, we'll do this for you. There's none of that stuff.
Only for limited time.
Yeah.
The next 10 minutes.
That's right. So we've never gone like we publicly put our price lists out. Everything is just wide exposed, which is not common.
Yeah.
You know, and that's gotten other companies in trouble when they say, you know, XYZ Lawn Care is paying $15 a bag for this, but Joe's over here is in the same neck of the woods who's buying less of it is only paying 10. How did that happen? And then that gets out, you know, so we run on a very direct, you know, everybody very transparent. This is the way things go. And it helps. I mean, you know, nobody guesses.
That's interesting. I actually had a conversation yesterday with an entrepreneur who said that they did not want to put their prices online because then, or their videos, their content building, because then people know.
Yeah. I'm the opposite.
Same here.
Shove it out there.
Yeah.
Like, and because people will look.
Yeah, I get annoyed if I can't look. When someone comes to your website, it's the first thing they're going to look for is it the right fit and how much?
Yeah.
And if I can't find how much, I don't want to call.
Agreed.
I don't want to email. I don't want to fill out a quote and then they'll call me later. I don't want to do it.
No, the insurance companies ruin that one for us. Like, oh, is this the Utah health insurance? Like, bring, phone's ringing from 90 different people, and you never get a thing. You know, you still don't have an answer. So that was another piece of it. Is, you know, we print it. We get all the price lists out to people. We show them what it is. There's, you know, it's so simple to have integrity, and just here's what it is. You know, we don't wheel and deal, because what if somebody said something to somebody else and somebody said this, and does that, and like, what good does that do you at the end of the day?
Do you think business is simple when
Actually,
you strip it all away? I know some people they want to make it some complicated, and there's some big hero, and some just think,
it's relationships.
That's what I say.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is every day. It's talking to people every day. It's getting to know people, you know, knowing your customers, your kids, their names, their pets, their birthdays. I mean, like stuff like that. You get to know people, make a lot of friends. And I think that's really important too, is I don't have trouble having people who I do business with who are also friends. That's not a problem. If they chose to not do business with me, doesn't mean they're not my friend anymore.
Right.
So, you know, I still have people like that who's like, yeah, we've known each other forever. We met through business. We don't actually interact that way. It doesn't affect the relationship.
Gotcha.
Because always people kind of come back around, or they'll call for something or advice or whatever. It's always there.
Yeah.
So I do think just being yourself in business is a big thing, because at first your identity is your business.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to be yourself.
Yeah.
And the business has to have its own identity. And for that piece, guys struggle on. Owner-operators, small businessmen, they are so emotionally tied to their business that if something happens, they take it as a personal affront to them.
Yep.
Which isn't the case. There's that entity and there's you.
Yeah.
And you need to remember that. And it's an asset. It's not an extension of you. It's an asset. You got to work it as an asset.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's a hard lesson. You know,
Big time.
You go out and a job doesn't go the way you want it. You take it personal.
Oh, big time.
Or something you can't control. A lawn doesn't look great because they didn't water it. You take it personal.
Yeah, yeah. And the first time you get fired from a customer is really challenging. It's like,
you can't sleep.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know what. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this at all.
Yeah,
you know, like some people just don't keep going.
It's not a good fit.
Yeah. The shelf life of a customer in lawn care is only like 3.5 years anyway.
Yeah.
It's fast.
In winding down, tell me a little bit about your kids. And I know you, what do you like to do for fun? Because I know obviously you like to write, play in the band, ski.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
But what else? I know you've got 2 kids.
Yep.
I think you said about 11 and
8 and 11.
8 and 11. So
yeah, boy and girl.
So that's an age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can talk back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting rough around there. That's why I'm here actually right now. I just needed to get out of that. I think I left them in a closet. No, so yeah, they're a blast. They're super fun. We do go on a lot of adventures. I take them on my business travels a lot as well, so they get to come and be part of it. My daughter loves going into the trade shows and stuff. She has a great time with that. Normal life is a lot outside.
Yeah,
a lot outside. So I mountain bike a ton, like a ton. Yeah, I know. I like that shirt.
Yeah. I only have one shirt, so this is the shirt I always wear.
That's cool. Yeah, I get it. So obviously this time of year is fantastic, but I tend to try to go 3 or 4 times a week. I'm out as much as I can. Obviously I ski a ton when that can happen. I just like being outside.
Yeah.
And I love having projects that way. Both of my kids, well, my daughter is super artistic, very artistic. She's got an amazing voice. She songwrites, she's drawing and painting all the time. So she's got more of that. My son is not. He is a nerd and he's so smart and he's booky and he's a geek and I love it.
Yeah.
But he does not have that same,
that's funny.
So different.
It's hard to please them both and hey, we're going to go out and do this. And one wants to do that and that.
But they both love adventures.
Yeah.
So, I am much more of a, I guess from sort of a gift-giving standpoint as a father, it's destinations and it's experiences.
Yeah.
It's not
things and toys.
Crap. Yeah. They have to buy their own stuff.
They have to buy their own crap.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, John, thank you so much for coming down and spending some time talking a little bit more about your life and the companies you built. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
They're awesome. I mean, I'm part of a lot of the groups and I see people love your products, businesses on the move, new things happening.
Yeah. Nonstop.
It's awesome.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Company Next Door.